All right, this is the 5 fundamentals of UX everyone should know. My name is Burton Smith. You can find me at most social media at Stuffbreaker. Real quick, before we get started, how many of you are a UX designer by trade? Okay, how many of you are a UX engineer? How many of you are a manager? Okay, how many of you are a software developer? Hey, all right. How many of you think of yourself as a UX person? Oh, we're gonna change that today. Hope you guys are ready. It's gonna be awesome. All right, cool. Just real quick about me. I currently work at ZocDoc. If you haven't heard of it before, it's a very cool website software that you can, it's kind of like Yelp for finding doctors and medical care. You can go in and read reviews and things about doctors and find them that are in your provider network and things like that. So pretty cool. Check out ZocDoc, highly recommend it. Also, in my off hours, I'm super nerdy and I continue to write software in my off time. I have a lot of open source projects that I do. My latest one is the WC Toolkit. It's a Web Components Toolkit. So if you've heard of Web Components or custom elements, I do a lot of software and tooling around that. So yeah, very, very fun, very nerdy, very niche. Now, let's start talking about UX for a second. Now, every time I start talking about UX, I get the same thoughts from people when they start talking about it, right? They think, oh, UX, it's just visual design, like it's how it looks, you know, that's really what UX is all about. They just think that, you know, it's how pretty or how nice looking the user interface is for an application. Unfortunately, that is not the case, right? It's much deeper than that. So we're going to dive in, and we're actually going to talk very little about user interface development, and we're going to talk about actual user experience development. So when I talk about the 5 fundamentals, it comes down to 5 core questions. So I'm going to give you the TLDR of this talk right now, and here it is, 5 questions. If you can read that real quick and leave if you want to. You'll have the nutshell of what we're talking about today. But basically, whenever I approach a task or a problem or something that I'm working on where I know it's going to be either for myself or for someone else, I try to address it first with these 5 questions. Who is the user? What are they trying to accomplish? How can we help them do that? What do we want the user to do? And how do we incentivize them to do that? So we'll talk about what that looks like here in a little bit. Now, the fun thing is that UX means a lot of different things in a lot of different ways. Now, how many of you guys have seen, outside of this little UX circle, these abbreviations used before in other places? Yeah, quite a bit, right? I got this cool little pointer. Watch this. Ready? Boop, boop, boop. Oh, where are we? Oh yeah, cool. How about this guy? What does that mean usually? Developer experience. All right, how about this guy or girl? We won't be weird about it. Customer experience. Oh, how about this one? Agentic experience, that's a new one. I've got to get that in there, right? So now we're starting to build all of these very rich, complicated user experiences. We brand them in different ways, but really it is just fundamentally a user experience of some kind. Even for an agentic experience or AI-driven experience, we write and tailor our experiences specifically to help make AI successful. So we got to keep that stuff in mind. So, when we talk about user experience, we talk really about the customer journey, right? What is it that the user is going through that brought them to us to be able to help solve this problem? Now, this is a very common, the hero's journey. Who's heard of the hero's journey before? Yeah, we can, there's lots of different analogies for it, but it was very common, especially for adventure stories and things like that. Someone is called to an adventure, they go out, they find a mentor, the mentor helps guide them along the way. You could think of like Lord of the Rings or some of these, Frodo gets the ring, he has to go and try to destroy the ring. This is the hero's journey, the life cycle of what they have to do to accomplish a specific task. Well, guess what? That's not so different from the customer journey itself. So we look at movie plot diagram. Who's seen this before? So basically I took the hero's journey and kind of just put it into a movie plot diagram to help kind of illustrate it. And this is very common. Well, there's a really old movie you probably never heard before. Star Wars. Anyone heard of Star Wars before? See? Go home and watch Star Wars, please. So we can think about Star Wars for a second. We've got the beginning where we've got the exposition. We got this guy named Luke Skywalker, right? We learn a little bit about him. He lives on this little farm. All of a sudden he gets these droids come and he gets a call to action. And there's this conflict. His family dies. Sorry, spoiler alert. His family dies. And then he has to go and try to destroy the Empire. And then, he saves a day at the end. And it's pretty awesome. So the funny thing is that our user experience journey maps up pretty close to that. So we have, who's our user? Our user is Luke Skywalker, right? What do they need? Well, they've got to destroy the Empire. So how can we help them do that? Well, we'll talk about that in a second. What are we asking them for as the people, as part of this journey? And what is our incentive? Now, the important part here is who can show us the way, or who can show the hero the way to solve this problem? And that's where we come in, okay? If you've ever written an email before, if you've ever written a Slack message or a text message, or if you are actually in, application development or APIs, who's written an API for HTTP requests, a RESTful API? Guess what? You're part of a user experience journey. What? Right? Who's ever written a PowerPoint presentation? You're creating a user experience, all right? So the important part here, though, is understanding our role in the user experience. If we're creating these user experiences, what is our role in the grand scheme of things? Now, get ready for it. Still with our little Star Wars analogy here. Our users are Luke Skywalker, and we're frickin' Yoda, right? You're welcome. You just got this pretty cool upgrade. So this is part of the problem that we see sometimes when people build things or when they write things. Who's ever been on a baking recipe website before? Aren't they just the worst? You get on there and you're like, I just need to know how to make my coconut brownies. And instead I got to read this 50-page blog about when they were little and their grandma liked to eat coconuts. And you're like, well, I don't even care about that. I just want to get to my recipe, right? That's kind of a janky user experience because guess what? They've focused the hero off of the actual users onto themselves. They're trying to make themselves the hero of the journey, but that's not it, right? If they're offering something, we're the hero, they're the guide, they're Yoda, right? They're going to help us along the way. All right, so let's start breaking down these 5 questions a little bit. First question, who is the user? Who's seen this before? Something like this, something similar to that. What are they called? What is it? Personas, yes. Or user cards, or I've heard lots of different names for them. But yeah, it's a user persona. And these are pretty cool. You'll see lots of design agencies and lots of big companies will have these based on the users that they're trying to target. And you can see in here, we have their age, things that they like, things that they don't like, and sometimes these are very elaborate, and they're like, oh, this is Mark, he likes long walks on the beach, and they get really weird into it sometimes. And I'm not sure how they always get that information, but what they're doing is they're trying to identify who their users are so that they can accurately tailor the solution for that user, right? Very, very important piece of it, because now what we have is we need to understand what are they trying to accomplish. Because the better we can understand our users, the better we can understand what their needs are. Now, the hard part is that oftentimes when a user is out there looking for a solution, there's 1.5 million different solutions. How many of you have looked for a database solution before? How many of you found more than one that would fit your needs? Most of the time, right? So it gets very confusing. It can get very noisy in terms of understanding, well, what's the right solution for me? Then you're like comparing and contrasting different websites. You're like, should I go with Redis or should I go with something else? You know, and it gets very confusing, and it can get very complicated and overwhelming for the user. Now, our goal is to help provide clarity, right? Our goal is to help quiet the noise and say, hey, here's the solution that we provide. Now, I put a megaphone on here because this is something that I think often gets lost. People aren't loud and direct about the solution that they're providing, right? When you're providing an API for developers to use, what are you actually providing? Anyone want to take a guess? Yes, a user experience, good job. Yes, you're providing a way to transfer data safely and hopefully in a correct format, right? So there's things that you need to think about and say, hey, we're here to help you do this thing specifically. And when you call it out specifically, you're gonna get way more response than if you're kind of wishy-washy or ambiguous about it. If you're like, oh, we provide all kinds of different kinds of storage solutions and blah, 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 it's going to get lost in the messaging, right? You have to be very specific and very direct with what the value you're providing is. All right, here's a perfect example. Anyone heard of McMaster's before? Yeah. This is probably one of the most unsexy websites in the world. But let me tell you, it's amazing. And one of the reasons why it's amazing is because they understand their users. You can go in that website, every page loads instantaneously. It's amazing. It's so fast. There's so much content on there, and it's incredibly performant. And as you go through, their hierarchy is set up in such a way that you can just click in and find exactly what you want to in just a matter of seconds, right? It's very easy to navigate, very easy to find what you need. It's because they understand their user and they understand the problem they're trying to solve for their user. They don't need all this flash and other things like that. They need users to be able to get in, find their nuts and bolts, and get out, right? There's not a lot of contractors out there who are like, I wonder what they have in butterfly nuts these days, and just perusing the website, right? That's not really the purpose of it. That's not really what their users do. Their users have a specific need, they know what they need, and they need to get in and out as fast as possible to help continue with the rest of their work. They understand their users very well, and they help solve that problem very well. Very good example of good user experience. All right, this next one apparently is a blank slide. Don't know where that came from. Whether a user chooses to engage with your solution often comes down to how well you tell their success story. So when a user comes to your site, or when a user comes to your presentation that you're sharing, the faster, if you want them to take action and you want them to engage with the solution that you're proposing, you have to tell their success story. You have to tell them how whatever you're doing is going to make them awesome at the end of the day, right? The goal is to make them awesome. They're the hero. Make them the hero. Make them look good. That's your job. So as you present a solution, or as you highlight the messaging on your site, the goal should really be highlighting their success story, how you make them look awesome. Hey, if you buy our stuff, you'll be the star. Like, people will love you because you solved this solution so well, right? So now, this is the flip side. So this is really the thing that brings them in. The first 3 questions, identifying the users, what their needs are, and how will we solve it, that brings our users in. Now, usually, we want them to do something, right? We want them to subscribe, like, buy, whatever it may be, take an action, give us a promotion, whatever, right? We want them to do something with the information that we're giving them. And so now we want to be able to identify that and make sure that we include that as part of our core user experience. This is a part where people often forget. They forget that second half, or it's an afterthought. And because of that, their user experience is frustrating, not for their user, but for them. They're not getting what they need to out of the solution. They're not getting the promotion that they wanted. They're not getting the action from management that they're expecting from them. They're not getting people using their APIs, et cetera, et cetera. We need to identify what we need as this transaction, because user experiences are transactions, right? And bake that in as part of the complete user experience. Now, the last part is, actually, this is a good slide too. If your answer is the same as the first question being, what are they trying to accomplish, right? If you're like, our users are trying to buy nuts and bolts. What do we want them to do? Buy nuts and bolts. You're missing the point, right? You're not trying hard enough. Our goal really is not to just have them buy nuts and bolts. We want them to come back and buy nuts and bolts from us every single time. We want to be their de facto nuts and bolts provider, right? So we need to now reach a little bit deeper, find out what it is we want to provide, what we want from them, and start driving the user towards that direction. Now, how do we incentivize them to do that? Any Kroger engineers in the room today? I know we have some here at the conference. So Kroger, perfect example. Who's shopped at Kroger before? Or a grocery store in general? Those of you who did not raise your hands are either asleep or you're lying, so that's okay. But what do they have typically at a grocery store? A rewards program, right? You go and scan your rewards card, and they're like, hey, we gave you 30% off your carrots. Good job. And you know what? Maybe we'll give you a kickback on the gas, too. Who knows, right? They have this nice little rewards program that tries to make it sticky to you so that you keep coming back to them over and over again. That's their incentive, right? Yeah, they may take a loss on carrots, but they're going to make up for it with continued revenue from you because they offset the price of celery. Who knows? I don't know, right? So, but either way, they're going to keep you coming back. That's the goal, is to keep you being sticky. So, now how do we test this? All right, so we have these 5 questions. We answer these questions. It's not rocket science. It's just regular science, right? It's a scientific method. We have an observation. We think our users are this. Let's go ahead and test that hypothesis. We experiment. And we have a conclusion. Do we success or fail? And then you iterate again, and you keep doing it over and over again. How many of you guys do A/B testing in your user interface development? It's a pain sometimes, but it is really cool. Like, you can get a lot of really great feedback on how accurate your hypotheses were, right? You can see, if we change this thing, will this help our users find what we're selling better or whatever? And you can get that real-time feedback. So again, it's straightforward. It's things we learned in elementary school, scientific method, very straightforward, and we can follow it over and over and over again. So here's the truth of it, though. You're going to get this wrong, and that's okay. You're going to get it wrong the first time, and you're probably going to get it wrong the second time. And each time you'll get a little bit better, hopefully, and get closer and closer and closer to your targets that you're shooting for, right? Understanding your users better. Are we solving their problem better? Is our call to action for them tailored correctly so that they're actually doing the things that we're asking them to do? Is our incentive there in place so that they keep coming back? I'll tell you a couple of quick stories here. Sorry, need some water. That was loud. This is where people have gotten them wrong, but how they pivoted to make things better. So this first one, these are little milkshakes on here. There's a certain fast food chain, their name rhymes with Schmcdonald's. They were providing a milkshake. And they were selling the milkshakes. They're like, oh, this is great. It's during the summer. Our afternoon sales are going to be through the roof because it's hot. We're going to, these are going to sell like hotcakes. This is going to be amazing. Well, they were selling, but when they actually went back and looked at the data, they realized that they weren't selling when they thought they were. They were selling in the morning instead of in the afternoon, like they thought it would when it was hot. Come to find out, the people who were buying them were actually people who would buy them on their way to work in the morning commute, because they would, be stuck in traffic for hours at a time. They wanted something to help satiate their hunger. They want to eat a banana and hang out with a banana peel, I guess, the whole time. So they would buy these milkshakes for their car ride in, and they would drink their milkshakes for breakfast. It's not the healthiest thing I've ever heard of, but that's what their user base was, right? So they said, hey, that's interesting. We're selling more of these in the morning. How can we actually make it better for those users in the morning? What are they actually trying to solve? So they actually tweaked the recipe a little bit to make it a little more viscous, to make it thicker so it would be more filling for them. They would feel more satisfied with the milkshake that they were drinking in the morning. So they realigned to actually meet their user base and provide them a better product for it. So kind of cool. The second one, I gave this talk at CodeMash, and I don't exactly remember what I talked about when I had this image in here, but I love it so much that I kept it in here. So I hope you enjoy this very fun one. But basically, it's solving the wrong problem, right? We have identified the wrong problem of our user, and I'm sure I talked about how this guy understood the wrong problem and shoved his Porsche. Now this is from a commercial in the 90s, so they actually shoved a Porsche over the side. That's not AI generated. That's a Porsche going over the hill. So a story for that is there was a office building, had a very slow elevator. People complained every day about how slow the elevator was. And they would tell management, well, you need to fix it, you need to fix it, you need to fix it. And they went and did the research. They're like, man, it's very expensive to replace the elevator so that it can move faster for our users. So instead, they did a cheaper solution. They put up mirrors in the elevator. Come to find out, people really like looking at themselves in the mirror. So they put mirrors in the elevator, and guess what? Magically, the complaints went away because they were no longer bored in the elevator. They enjoyed looking at themselves, I guess, as they went up and down. And so it was no longer a problem that it was a long, slow elevator ride anymore. So they fixed a different problem. The problem itself was not the elevator was slow, it was that people were bored on the elevator because it took a while. So instead they put up some mirrors, and that's a way cheaper solution than rebuilding the motor of an elevator, right? So really, when this is an important part, people like to bring you solutions, right? When they say, hey, we have a problem, here's how we need to fix it, you got to start digging deeper to find the problem first, right? We got the 5 whys. If you've never heard of that, you have to have why 5 times or whatever to get to the root of the problem. Really, the goal is to get down to the core of the problem and then start building the solutions up from the core of what the actual problem is. All right, this next one, we'll just stop and watch this for a second because it's hilarious. This goes back to my college days. I was a martial arts instructor as I worked my way through college, and it really is the best job ever. Like this only is a tip of the iceberg. Wipe and kids out. So one of the things we did as a martial arts instructors, we go and do what we called school talks, where we go and talk to the students. We give them little pep talks, talk about how, it's important to show respect. It's important to listen to your teachers. It's important to have integrity, all of these things. Now, the goal of these school talks was not only to help spread goodwill and help teach kids in positive ways, but we wanted to have kids recruit kids through it, right? We wanted to have kids come to our school because we were so cool and we did so much fun stuff as karate instructors. The problem that we had is, first of all, The first time we started doing it, we weren't asking anything. We'd give them coupons and things for like a free month of martial arts classes or whatever, but we would never be like, hey, come to our school. And so the first little while, we never saw a lot of return on that investment. Then we started saying, oh, we need to start inviting them to say, hey, we'll have a special class for you guys to come and an initiation and everything. You guys can come try it out. You have your free coupon, just call and sign up. Again, not a lot of return on that investment. And we realized, you know what, we were asking the wrong thing. We said, okay, we have a special time slot available just for your school on this day. So we asked it, and not only did we ask it and give it specifics on it, it was also time bound, right? That helps a lot. FOMO is crazy, right? People are suckers for it. And I'm not saying that because you should be trying to trick people into doing that. That's dark UX. We're not about dark UX here, okay? We want to be good. But it is a powerful tool to help encourage people to take action and move into action. Now, the other problem, we started seeing more and more people show up from that, but still it wasn't enough. And we realized that we had the wrong incentive. This change was simple. It didn't cost us very much, but it was orders of magnitude more powerful than anything else that we had. We told them, hey, if you come to the class that we have available to you, you will get a free white belt, which we were going to give to them anyway, but we weren't announcing. We weren't letting them know that they would get a free white belt for coming to that class. And people loved it. They loved the idea of getting a free white belt, even if they weren't signing up. And they came out to it, and guess what? Once they were there, once we started interacting with the kids, they saw how much fun their kids had, how much fun, how much they were learning in just one class. We had a ton of people sign up from it because the incentive was right at that point. That was the right incentive for that audience. And to see that little thing, those white belts probably cost us $1 a piece, right? It was, if one person signed up, it paid for all those white belts 25 times over. It was crazy, right? It wasn't $1,000 to sign up for class, but it was a huge investment, a very small investment for a huge impact at the end of the day. Our incentive was now calibrated correctly for our users, for our target audience. Now, it's all about the outcomes. The goal is to make sure that we are driving the user experience in a meaningful way to get the correct outcome. If we're not planning for that, and if we're not thinking about that from the start, we're going to miss our mark, and guess what? It's going to be so frustrating. You're going to be burnt out and tired. You're not getting the results that you expect from something. Who's been burnt out at work because the initiatives you've been driving keep getting distracted with other stuff? Oh yes, I'll raise my hand twice because that happens so much, right? When our outcomes aren't what we expect, that's when we lead to burnout and frustration. So being able to calibrate the expectation and drive that from the start will help lead you to more successful outcomes, okay? Now, with that being said, I decided to create a skill, an AI skill. You didn't think you were coming to an AI talk, but guess what? Here we are. We're going to talk about AI for just a second. I created this yesterday because I thought this would be kind of a cool way to drive the experience a little bit, to create a new user experience, right? I want to be able to, what I usually do is when I start a new project, I write out my 5 questions and I fill in the blanks and start answering the questions as I fill it out so that I keep that frame of reference in mind the whole time. So instead, what I thought is, what if I had an AI skill that I would be able to answer these 5 questions in a meaningful way? It can help provide guidance and feedback based on what I had. So the first one that I asked was, hey, what would be a good way to get my talk about UX accepted at Stir Trek? And its response was, that's tough. My recommendation would be to submit a talk with the title, Unlocking Synergistic AI-Driven Cloud-Native Micro Front-Ends for Scalable Innovation, and then switch the content to your UX talk. It didn't really say that, but that would be really funny if it did. So what I did is I ran it through a hypothetical scenario, actually one not too different from one that I've worked on in the past. It's kind of little, but I'll try to keep everyone along for the ride. I said, I need some UX help. We just launched a loyalty points feature for our coffee shop app, and nobody is using it. So then it'll be like, okay. So the goal of this skill, first of all, is we'll say, okay, tell me more about this, right? That's the first step one, project brief. Say, interesting challenge, loyalty features have so much potential, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, you can say, what does the loyalty feature actually do and where does it live in the app? So tell me more about this project is really what it's asking for. Users earn a point for every dollar they spend. Once they hit 100 points, they get a free drink. It's on its own tab in the app, but most people never open it. Got it. So, it does this little AI thing, and then it says, okay, first, who is your typical user? Paint me a picture of that person, and most likely to be a repeat customer. They're likely to be the ones that are using the loyalty program, right? Mostly young professionals, 25 to 35, grabbing coffee in their morning commute. They're regulars, probably come in 3 to 4 times a week. Great. Perfect. Creature of habit, blah, blah, blah. Second question, what's the problem they're trying to solve when they open the app? Not what you want them to do, what are they there for? So see how it's kind of teasing out a little bit, like trying to get more information? Like, I want you to think about the user, not so much about what you want. What does the user want here? Honestly, mostly to order ahead of their coffee, so their coffee is ready when they arrive. Speed is the whole point for them. That's really useful. How does your app help them solve that? What's the core value from their perspective? Skip the queue, they order on their way, walk in, grab and go. So, how many of you think this is kind of obvious? Like, you're like, oh, this kind of, come on, really? Here's the problem though. Sometimes we forget the obvious. The obvious thing is, like when we start looking at visual design and how pretty things look, or we start thinking about, how much information we have in our deck for our presentation, sometimes this basic stuff just goes right out the window. We start forgetting about it. We lose focus. So this is trying to draw that focus back in to make sure that we're still focusing on the core things. And right now it seems obvious because we're just talking about it right now. I can't even tell you how many times for myself I've had this problem and I've had to go back to the questions and recalibrate and refocus my efforts, okay? Love it, skip the queue, blah, blah, blah. What exactly do you want the user to do with the loyalty feature? Be specific. Open the loyalty tab, check their points, and feel motivated to keep coming back and earn that free drink. One last one. What's in it for them right now? This is a really good question, right? When they're standing in the queue tomorrow morning, what's the immediate reason to open the loyalty tab rather than just ordering and leaving? I guess knowing they're getting closer to a free drink, but I admit it's pretty weak if they have to go hunting for it. And then, okay, great. And then one AI will say, well, here's my analysis. Here's what I think you could do. Now, again, I made this yesterday, so it's still in its infancy. There's going to be a lot of tweaking and calibrating that I do with it, but you can see how it kind of helps guide you along the way, helps push you to do things, helps identify the problem and focus the problem. The goal is really, again, what's the outcome for the user, and then what's the targeted outcome for yourself? This is a transactional experience. Every time you have a UX, you have a two-way street. They're getting something from you, you're trying to get something from them. When we forget about that, that's when we start losing focus. Awesome. So again, the 5 questions. Who is the user? What are they trying to accomplish? How can we help them do that? What do we want the user to do? And how do we incentivize them to do that? Those 5 questions, again, very simple. These have nothing to do with visual design, again. Visual design is the manifestation of the answers to these questions, but they're much more fundamental, underlying, and they help drive initiatives. With that being said, that is it. I did save a little bit of time for questions if anyone does have questions. What's that? You still have 10 minutes. I do, yeah. I don't see. Cool. That's straightforward. I actually went through that a little faster than I thought I would. But thank you guys for coming out. I really appreciate it. And you guys get to get in front of the line for lunch, so congratulations.